Hello, my name is Trey Brimmer. I'm with Mitel, and today I'm going to talk about the 6920 IP phone for the ACD agents. We're going to talk about all its interesting features, and we're going to go through all the buttons to make sure you know the lay of the land. We're going to show you how to log into this phone and log out. And one thing we need to go through is a couple little reminders. The first one is you'll need to dial 9 for an outside line. When you dial 9 to call somebody, you'll need to dial the area code for both what's considered long distance or local. Area code 9, area code, and phone number. You'll no longer need to dial the 1 for long distance or for 800 dialing, but keep in mind that that's a habit. It's hard to break, but you should try to, because if you realize you're already pressing 9 and 1, you're very close to calling emergency, and it does happen quite a bit when people are dialing out. But you will not have to dial 1 in here, so you can eliminate that 1 and save yourself a little hassle there. If you do add a 1, it will work for you, but you don't need to. The default ACD agent ID, or the extension number they're going to provide you, will be the same as the PIN number that it asks for, unless you have voicemail and you set up that voicemail with a different PIN. The voicemail PIN and the ACD PIN will be the same. So initially, when we're first logging into the phone, you're going to go ahead and put in your extension number or your agent ID that was given to you, and then you're going to use that same agent ID for the PIN. And then if you do, for some reason, need a voicemail, then and you set up your voicemail, it'll change your PIN to be whatever that voicemail PIN is. It's very unlikely, though, because if you think about it, no calls will come directly to your phone's voicemail. It rings and looks for an agent that's available, and then maybe goes to a general mailbox, but it won't go to your specific mailbox. So keep that in mind. A couple other things. When you make yourself busy, you should use that feature during the day when you're away from your desk. You shouldn't log all the way out. You log in the morning, log out at night, and in between you make busy. And when you press make busy, it's going to ask you to put in a number. They'll give you a sheet of like 1 through 9, and there'll be things like on a break, busy work, or maybe you're doing work outside of your regular duties. So it's a way for everyone to see what's going on if you're making yourself busy and going on break. When you press the make busy button, you're going to hear dial tone. It's just the way it works. You just have to hang up. So when you initially hit it, a lot of people are confused. They get dial tone all of a sudden. Just hang up. So let's take a look at the phone. This is a 6920 IP phone that you should be receiving. If for some reason you're getting our 6930 or 6940, please keep in mind they work generally the same way. The 30s are going to have the same navigation key. They just have a few more buttons, so that's really the only big difference. So the way it works is the very top of the phone in the black, that's going to be your display. There's staggered buttons on the left-hand side of the display to control some features that are set up. Things like your actual extension number and then making busy and that sort of thing will all be there. The bottom buttons, there's bottom 4 buttons. Those control a dynamic area, that gray area, which I'll show you a little closer. And that changes depending on what's going on with the phone. So when you receive a call, it'll give you different options than it did when the call's ringing in. So you're going to look to that area a lot for doing things like transferring and setting up a conference call if you need to, or redialing something. You're going to see that that comes in very handy. All the way over on the right-hand side of the display, you'll see a little silver circle. That's going to be your navigation key. That'll allow you to navigate through things like your call history, your contacts. You do use it to move from page to page. That display has multiple pages where you have a little extra real estate. So it'll come in handy, and I'll show you as we move along when you'll need to use that tool. You don't have to use it all the time. It won't be something you're always constantly hitting, but there are going to be times when you want to go and use that navigation key to get to a screen or get to a contact or something along that lines. Okay, the below that is your standard dial pad, but on either side of it is going to be buttons that control things. On the left-hand side, it's going to be more feature-oriented, things like contacts, call histories, settings, changing your volume, that kind of thing. And then on the right-hand side of the display, you're going to have more call control type things like hanging up, holding the call, muting the phone, answering the phone, so things like that. And we'll go through each button so you kind of get the lay of the land. They don't say hold, so I'll kind of let you know what that little squiggly line means, and hopefully that'll help you out a little bit. So let's first talk about the navigation key. The way that works is the very center is select, and the outside ring is up, down, left, or right. So when you're navigating through a contact, you can scroll over, highlight the contact, then hit the center of the button to call that contact very quickly. Also, that dynamic gray area we talked about earlier will allow you to select or call from there as well, but you'll need that navigation key to get to it. So I'll show you how that comes into play, but that is definitely something you'll be using quite a bit, is the navigation key on the phone. Now let's talk about your logging in and logging out of this phone. It's called hot desk ACD or hot desking ACD. So when you're hot desking into the phone, the first step is going to be you'll recognize that the phone is locked. And when you are logged out, it will be locked completely except for 911 or the operator. So I could dial 911 while it's locked, but I won't be able to dial a phone number or an extension number, only the operator if I hit 0. You'll recognize that your phone's in the status when you see number 1 up very top left, where you'll have a pound in your extension number, the little hashtag symbol. It also says locked in the center, and then the button in the gray area will say hot desk. That's the button you're going to use to get into the phone and begin taking calls. So let's go ahead and start by pressing that button. When we press that, it's going to ask for my extension number or my agent ID. I'll punch that in and hit enter. And then it's going to ask me for my PIN. I'll go ahead and put in my extension number again, knowing I haven't been in the phone and set up a voicemail box. And I hit enter again, and it'll bring me to my main page. One thing to note on this is it brings you to your main page in a make busy status, which means that you can log into your phone a little early and not start getting calls if the calls are already coming in. So if you're on a second shift or you come in and you need time to prep, no worries, you can get all logged in, ready to go. And then when you're ready to take calls, you would hit the make busy button to release the make busy and begin receiving calls. So that's what the make busy button, that's what that looks like. To turn off the make busy, it'll be lit. And all you have to do is hit that lit key next to where it says make busy, and that will turn off the make busy. So it'll also turn it on. So when you turn it off or turn it on, keep in mind that if you have a live active call coming to you, you can't make busy and not pick up the phone. It's already been sent to you. So if you forgot to make yourself busy and you hear your phone ring, best practice is probably to pick up the call. If you don't, it's going to log you out of the phone and you'll have to log back in like you just did. Not a big hassle, but it's still not something you want to keep doing. Okay, so when you press that and release it, here's some basic codes. Your codes may vary, but when I hit make busy, it's going to ask me if I want to enter a code. If I just hang up the phone, it'll just say make busy. It won't put a code in there, but you can put a code to let people know that you went to a meeting or you had a training or some other reason. The reason for that might be up the road, people might not remember why you had made yourself busy for 2 hours, and it's a good way to indicate that you had something else going besides a long lunch. Here's what the phone looks like now that it's out of make busy. I'm now prepared to receive calls. Let's kind of look at the phone right now, and I'll kind of give you the lay of the land on the display portion. As we talked about earlier, there's staggered buttons on the left-hand side that correspond with the different words that you see we set up, like my phone single line, make busy, Toyota sales, Toyota parts. So those correspond with those. So if I want to access one of those, I would do that, and we'll kind of go through what each one is. When you're looking at the very top blue part, it indicates your extension number or your agent ID. And then there's some little, and this is, the top part is truly just informational. So it'll tell you your extension number you're sitting at, and then it gives you little icons for things like that you are logged in with your little fella there. The little ricochet and 4 means you missed 4 calls. And the little boxed area is indicating that you are green and good to go. It's connected to the network, and the network is seeing no errors. You'll notice that the white part of the display is cut in two, not exactly in half, but you can see there's a big area with information like the time, the date. It says Redial in there, and there's 3 little circles. And you'll notice that there's a little line that you'll see a little clearer probably on your phone than you can here, which kind of give you the buttons that you can press it or correspond it. Also in that empty area that you see between Redial and the time and date, it's going to show you caller identification of internal users or outside information. Caller ID, name and number will display there as well when a call comes in. It also gives you information when you're connected to a conference and that sort of thing. And you'll see that as we move along. Notice down in the gray area right now it says log out. Remember, that's dynamic, and those 4 buttons are associated to different items depending on where you are on the phone. Currently, we're logged in and ready, so I can log out of the phone and go home if that's the end of the day, or I can hit Redial because that's the only 2 things you can really do while you're sitting here and you're not getting any calls. When a call comes in, it'll change. That gray area will change, and you can use those buttons to answer and do things like transfer and set up a conference and that sort of thing. Okay, let's talk about the buttons we designed for you. And these are fixed buttons, so it's not going to change, nor are they dynamic. Starting at the very top left, you see where it says My Phone. My Phone is your inbound line key. You only really have one inbound line key because you're going to be an agent. You only take 1 call at a time. So when you're on that call, it won't offer you another call until you've completed the call, or if you put yourself in if you're until you finish the call. So when you're on a call, that'll be busy, and then when you get off, then there's a little timer that'll go off, give you a few seconds to collect your thoughts, and then it offers you the next call in queue. The next key down is a single line. That way, if you're on a call, but you need to get a hold of somebody, a supervisor or something like that, you can press that key and get a dial tone so you can make an outbound, an inbound call, or an outbound call or an extension call, or set up a conference. So it just gives you the ability to have one little extra way out in case you need to give someone a heads up or call somebody and keep that person without receiving another call. The blank key is available space to you. You'll see several of those as we go through the phone. Any blanks on this phone are available real estate for you to set up, and I'll show you how to do that. Make busy, there's that key again. When it's lit, you are in make busy, and you'll see right in the center, it'll say make busy, so you know you are ready for lunch or whatever you're going to. And then we have 2 keys here for Toyota sales and Toyota parts. That way, if you press the button, it dials each of those departments. If you need to transfer a call to it, I'll show you where you'll hit the transfer key, then you can hit the button and then hit transfer again to complete it. So it just gives you a little shortcut rather than dialing in the whole group number for that group of phones. When you see things like parts and sales, that generally indicates that it's going to be a grouping of phones that ring at the same time. Unlike you guys who ring one at a time. It'll send someone dials you, it's going to ring you or the next person who's longest idle, and it moves around. All right. Here's some little circles. What they're indicating are pages. This phone has multiple pages, and you can see this is where that navigation key is going to come in. You're going to press the navigation key to the right, and it will take you to the next page. On the next page, we now have Nissan sales, Nissan parts, Honda sales, Honda parts, and the Avon body shop. So those are all keys. And then you got another blank one for you to program whatever you want there. And everyone's phone should be laid out pretty much the same on that. Then if I go to the right one more time, if I go to the left, I go back to the home page. But if I go to the right, then it's going to take me to the remaining buttons we've programmed for you, which are Toyota service, Nissan service, or Honda service. So those are all just quick buttons. If you press them and you're not on a call, it'll call the department. If you are on a call, you'll hit transfer and you'll transfer the call, and we'll show you how to transfer. You do have those blank buttons, so keep in mind that you can program those. Here's how you program a key on the phone. We're just going to pick on this, but it could have been on either of those other pages with the blanks. You press the button that corresponds to the blank area, and you hold it down for 3 or 4 seconds. And what will happen, it's a lot like your car radio when you're programming a station. You just hold the button down. It's going to then pop into the screen where you can program the key. You can label it, number it, and decide if it's a private or a one you don't care if people see the number. The reason for that is that if you go small fonts or something, you could see the name and the phone number. So if it's something like your home phone and you don't want people to know your home phone number, you can just put home phone, mark it private, and put in your phone number, and people will only see your label, not the phone number. Okay, so that's mostly what you'll be doing. There are other features, but none of them would really pertain to you. They're going to be stuff like phone lock. You won't need that because your phone is locked once you log out. You can't call forward these phones, do not disturb, you can't do a mobile line. So a lot of this is just extra features for other people. And then the one that says more is just going to give you the make or the type of phone and the firmware version of the phone. So nothing really too much on there. So mostly you're going to stick to a speed call and set it up. Now remember the way speed call is going to work is it gives you a block. You'll want to put it the 9, the area code and the phone number for an outside call. And if it's an extension, you just put in the extension number, and label can be whatever you want it to be. So that's kind of how you program a phone. Incoming calls. So let's take a look at how that looks when an incoming call comes in. So here comes a call, and you can see in the center where it said Redial, it now gives you the name of the company and the caller identification information. It says it's calling. And you'll also notice where it said my phone at the top key, it now gives you caller identification phone number. And at this time, which I can't really show you, but it would be ringing and that button would be lighting and flashing to let you know there's a call coming in. You'll also notice in that dynamic area, in the gray area, it only offers you answer because that's the only thing you can do when a call is coming in, obviously, right? So if I go ahead and hit the answer key, if I'm wearing a headset, it'll answer it in my headset. If I'm not wearing a headset, I'm going to use the handset to pick up the phone and answer the call. Okay, so that's how that works. Now keep in mind that there is a software that's available to you guys called Ignite, and you can do a lot of the functionality without even touching the phones to be able to log in, log out, to answer calls, transfer calls, that sort of thing. So keep that in mind that you have that, but this is just if you're using the phone. So I want to make that clear that you may not even touch the phone, but if you do, you want to know how to manage it. Okay, once I answer the call, the caller ID will settle in. It'll tell me the name and the number. The caller ID will stay on the line. And you'll notice down at the gray area, that everything's changed. It's offering me things like transfer or add user or end the call. Also, you'll notice below the time and date, a timer has started. And that timer is going to be from when it entered the system. So you can tell if someone's been in the phone system for a while and hadn't been helped because the timer may be way up there. So you'll see that timer begin on your phone. So you have your transfer, your add user, which is the same as conference. You can conference. So there might be a situation where you pick up the phone and you need to get a supervisor or you need to get a manager and you want to maybe do a soft introduction or stay on the phone during the conversation. Then you'll add user to add in another person. Okay. Generally, what you're probably going to be doing is transferring. So what you can do at this point is we can go ahead and transfer a call. Here's how it works. Here's that same call just where we were at. We have answered it. And now we're ready to transfer it. We're going to hit the soft key below where it says transfer. Then we're going to enter the extension number. And then we will press transfer again when we're ready to send it. Now, what I mean by that is you can press transfer, dial the extension, and stay on the line. And you can privately announce it to whoever you're transferring to. Hey, here's a call for you. When I hit the transfer again, it'll complete the transfer and send it to you, and I'm ready for the next call. If you just want to transfer it and you don't need to announce it first, you could very quickly hit transfer, dial the extension, hit transfer again, and then you're off the call. If you want to transfer it to one of those departments that we have set up, you'll hit transfer once, hit the key for Toyota sales, Toyota parts, or go to the next page and hit Honda sales, Honda parts, Nissan sales, Nissan parts, or service. Pick the one you want, hit the button, hit transfer again to complete it, or stay on the line, announce it, and then hit transfer again to complete it. So really all the buttons that say Toyota or Nissan or Honda are doing for you is dialing the number, but you'll still have to use the transfer key to initially start the transfer and to complete the transfer. So the way it works, just to go over it again, I have a call, I'll hit transfer, I dial the extension number or the outside number by using 9 area code and phone number, and then hit transfer again to complete it. So important to note. You'll notice that I can hit transfer right now to complete it, but I can also have some other options, and I'm just going to quickly tell you about those. The big one is all the way over to the right hand side where it says back to held. The reason for that would be, say I want to transfer a call to you. I hit transfer, I dial your extension, I stay on the line to announce it, but you say, hey, can you tell them to call me back in an hour? I'm going into a meeting. Well, if I hit transfer again, it's going to send it to your phone, send it to their phone. If I want to get back to the caller, I'll go back, hit back to held, and that will bring me back to the original caller, and I can start over again or transfer them somewhere else or give them a message. Okay, so I don't know if you already need that, but that's what that's for. You can also see it says join calls. So even though I hit transfer and dialed the extension, at that point, maybe I talk to you and you say, can you stay on the line? Instead of hitting transfer again, I can hit join calls, and all 3 of us will be joined together. The customer, the person you're going to be transferring to it but decided to conference, and myself. So it's a way you can be part of the call, and then we can add other people onto that call if we need to by hitting the button again and adding another person. Trade calls means that I can go back to the original caller without stopping the transfer process. So unlike back to held, I can hit trade call, go back to the original caller, ask them a question or something, hit trade call again, go back to you and say this is their name or this is their company. And then you could say send it through, and I'd hit transfer again to complete it. So you have options. My recommendation is you kind of play with it with people internal, because transferring internally, if someone calls you internally and you transfer it, will work exactly the same as if you had an outside number. So it's a good thing. If you think that's a function you'd like to do, then I would recommend just practicing a little bit so you're comfortable when the situation arises. Okay, making a conference call is very similar, and we talked about it a little bit. We could change our mind on the transfer and make it a conference, but it works the same way. This time, here's the phone call, and we're intending on setting up a conference. Now, this could be a phone call that I had dialed, or a phone call, a person I had dialed, or someone who has dialed me, and I need to add someone in. So you could reach out, or they could be already on your phone for you to do this. So say I'm talking to you, and we decide, oh, we better add in a manager because you're asking me questions I don't know. I'll hit add user, and I'll dial the extension or the outside number of the person I want to add in. When I do that, it's a private conversation. The original person I was going to add will not hear our conversation. So I could say, this person's really difficult, I really need a manager, and the person won't hear until we join the calls together. If we decide at this point to hit join calls, then everyone's joined together. And the trade call and the back to held are exactly the same. Back to held will take me back to the original caller and cancel you as part of that call. Trade call will jump me back to have a conversation with the original caller, and then I can go back and I haven't lost a step. So that's how that works. Now, when I join calls, it'll tell me that 3 parties are conferenced together. And you'll notice that the gray area has changed a little bit. I can add a user, adding another user to it if I wanted to. So we could do up to 7 people and myself on a conference call. Or I could split it, which means I put everybody on hold, and then it'll allow me the trade call to go back and talk to each of those people. Or I can leave the call. So say I'm setting this conference up for someone else. Or let's just say the situation is that I wanted to conference all three of us so I could do a nice introduction of a manager. Mr. Jones, here's Manager Smith. He'll take you from here. Now I can hit leave call, and that leaves you two connected, but me out of the call, and then I can take my next call. So there's a lot of cool little ways to maneuver through the conferencing and the transfer. So hopefully that helps you. Let's talk about the left and right hand symbol buttons that are on either side of the dial pad. Okay, this is below the display into the gray area. The first one you have is your contacts key. Contacts are going to be ones that you've added or corporate contacts. It looks like this when you press the button on the display. You have personal or corporate contacts. Corporate contacts will show nobody when you go to that. You'll have to type in at least one letter of the person's last name to be able to find a contact internal. Now the contacts are going to be Hoffman wide. It's going to be all the phone systems. They're all interconnected. So you can look someone up at a different dealership, the Lexus store, or wherever you need to find somebody, you can find them through last name searching. Personal contacts are going to be ones that you've added or you'd like to add. And you can see down below it says add new. I can add in a new contact, and I could, using the keys on my telephone, type in the first and last name I went in there and the phone numbers. It could have multiple phone numbers, their cell phone, their regular desk phone. So it's like a little contact. I can also add them in easily through call history. If I go to the call history and I go, oh, I really want to keep that number, I can add them in, and I'll show you how that kind of works. So there's your corporate contacts. Those are going to be all people you've added in either by typing it in or moving it from call history. Unfortunately, it does not connect to like a Google contacts list, nor does it connect to another feature you guys may or may not be using, which is MyCollab, which is a software-based kind of chat and ability to have contacts and that sort of thing. So that's how this contacts list will work. The next one over is your corporate. Now, the only way I can get to corporate contacts is by hitting search and then using the keys on my telephone. I will type in at least one letter of the last name. Obviously, the more letters of the last name you put in, the closer you're going to get. But when you feel you've gotten close enough, you'll use your navigation key to scroll over and then scroll down until you find the right person, remembering that you can hit the center of the volume key at any point to go ahead and call that person back. If you keep going over to the right, you will go to their, on your personal contacts, you can actually add in more, you can edit it and add in more numbers, you can modify the information in there. Okay. Here's your call history. Your call history is available to you, and it separates things out: all calls, missed calls, outgoing calls, or receive calls. So if you need to go to your list, you can do so. You can see the little icons next to the names give you the indicators. So you can look at all and know if it's a missed call or an outside call or an incoming call. You'll use your navigation key again to scroll over to the name and then scroll down to find the right person. The newest is at the top, the oldest are at the bottom, so you can scroll over to get the last one you dialed and then scroll down to find the last call or the first calls that you received. It only holds about 20, I believe, numbers, so it'll push out the old as you move through the day. When you scroll over and highlight somebody, this is where you can add them to your contacts. And that's your personal contacts list. So that way, if someone called me, in this case, Bertha called me, and I need to keep her number for later, I can add it to my contacts there if I wanted to, or I can dial it here. Or remember, the center of the navigation key, once it's highlight, will also dial. I can also delete and then also close out of this. Okay. The next one is a voicemail key. You may or may not, as an ACD agent, have voicemail, but remember, the only people who would ever get to your voicemail are any internal people who are dialing your number directly. No inbound ACD calls will ever reach your personal voicemail box. So if you have a voicemail, keep in mind that if you set it up, that voicemail will now become your PIN for your ACD login. You can also call people's voicemail from here. You can press the voicemail key. If you don't have voicemail, it'll ask you to enter an extension number. You can dial in someone's extension and leave them a voicemail without ringing their phone. Okay. The little gears is your setting keys. Not a lot to talk about here. There's a few things to note. One is you might want to change your audio settings. That's going to be your ring. There's two kinds of things you can do with your audio settings. The first one is I can go into my audio, use my navigation key to scroll over and change the ringtone for my internal. If someone's calling me extension to extension, or an external call calling in, I can make that a different ringer. So if we're all kind of sitting together, I can get used to my different ringtones. As you move down the list, it'll play each one. Near the bottom are the more classic ring styles rather than that sing-songy rings. So you decide what you want. When you have it, you hit save, then you go back in, you can do your external. The other thing you can do is on where it's audio is before you hit select, hit the down arrow key. If you're wearing a headset, you can change the audio to headset, and that way when you hit your speaker headset button, you'll pick up the headset right away. You don't have to, if you're wearing a wired headset, then you won't have to hit the key twice. I'll show you what I mean in a little bit, but it's a good setting there. And if you have any problems and you think you're going to want this, when we set you up, make sure you tell them that you need to get your headset set up and we can help walk you through it, people on site. Okay. Here's your display setting. The only thing on that is you get the screensaver. It looks like this that pops up after 5 minutes. If that's something you don't want, and it dims down really low. So if that's something you don't want, it will wake up if a call comes in. But if that's something you want to postpone, you don't want it to be so dim all the time or go into screensaver, you can go into your brightness and screensaver levels. Brightness is the brightness of the display when it's good to go. And then the screensaver both has a timer that you can out all the way to, I believe, maybe a hour and a half or something, 100 and maybe 130 seconds or something like that. You can test it, type in the number and see if it takes it. But then you can also determine how bright it'll go. You can see by default it's going to be 1, so it really dims the display down. The idea is that's a nice feature at night. You know, it saves energy. So it's an energy saver. That's why it's like that. But you can set the timer out to what you think is reasonable during the day. The one weird thing on this one is you're not going to use a navigation key to set the level up or down. You're going to use those little arrows that you see in the navigation or in this gray area, which is unusual. It's only like the only time where it has a separate kind of setting. You would think that you would be using that navigation key here, but you don't for some reason. And then when you have it where you want it, make sure you hit save, and then away you'll go. Here's your volume control. Each piece of volume is separate. So if you pick up the handset, you can adjust that volume. If you wear a headset, you get that going. You can adjust the volume of that. When a call comes in the first time and you think it's maybe too low or too high, you can adjust the volume while the phone is ringing. So you can change the ring volume. So there's your volume control. And when you're talking to somebody, you can adjust that on the fly, you know, back and forth. A weird thing about this, and most people forget it even though it's on the video, is a weird thing about this phone is if you take the level all the way to the max, which I believe is like 9, it'll go back to the default. You need to go 1 below the 9 or the top number for it to stay. Not sure why that is, but it is a thing. So keep that in mind. Okay, now let's look at the other side of the phone. Now we're looking at the right-hand side of the phone, starting at the top. First thing you have is a hang up button. This is used when you're wearing a headset. The actual answer key or speaker key is at the very bottom, so it gives you a little distance between the keys, but that's where that hang up key comes into play, is if you're wanting to hang up your phone. The next one is a redial list. You saw that it said redial on the display and it gave you the last number you dial, but this will take you to the actual list. So if you want to pick the second to last one you dial, it'll bring you straight to outgoing on your call history, and then you can scroll over and dial the second or third person who dialed in. Okay. Here's your hold key. When you place a call on hold, you'll see on your display, it'll be fluctuating colors and letting you know it's on hold. but you'll see that your main key will be on hold. It looks like a little pause key. Just press the key next to that pause and you're back in action. So you'll put it on hold on that button below, but you'll recover it from the button above. Okay. Here is your mute key. It mutes the handset, the speaker, or the headset if you're wearing it. So it's a nice mute key. You'll notice it turns red next to it. It's one of the few colorized buttons. It'll help you through it. But there's your mute key. And the next one is your speaker and headset. And the picture I have is a little bit older. You'll notice now it has a little slash with a speaker and a little headset design on there. Remember, in the settings, if you go to audio and instead of hitting select, use the down on the navigation key, you can change headset as the primary if you're wearing a wired headset. So if you're wearing a wired headset, go ahead and change that setting, and then when you press the key on the phone one time, you'll hear it in your headset. If you don't, you'll have to hit it twice. The first time it'll go to speaker, and the second time it'll go to headset if you don't change that setting. So good habit to get into is to change that setting. So that's your speaker and your headset. Remember, if you do have voicemail, there is a sheet that will be distributed that will help you set up your voicemail. Your voicemail PIN is the same as your extension, just like your login. But once you set up your voicemail, both your ACD hot desk login PIN and your PIN for your voicemail will match. So keep that in mind. Make it something you'll remember, because if you forget, you won't be able to log into your phone without administration getting involved. So good habit to get into. I appreciate your time today. I hope this helps you navigate through your phone, and good luck. Thanks.